So I just saw A Death on the Nile and I did not like it very much. And you know what? I'm not going to lie to you right now. I'm actually really happy to say that because, yeah, if you watch a couple of my last couple of videos, I tend to really like stuff. And I've noticed recently that's kind of a problem because people don't really like watching videos about people talking about stuff they like. People really like it when you can just dig into something you hate. And while I don't hate this movie, I got a lot to say about what's wrong with it. Before I really dig into what I didn't like about this movie, I guess I should say what I did like, and there are a couple of things. The first one that's most obvious, Kenneth Branagh is really trying to carry this movie as the detective Poirot, and I feel like he is probably the best part of the whole movie, and you can tell that he really cares about this, and in some ways, he kind of does save the movie. Like, he's the only character that's actually good in this movie, and, like, actually, not good in terms of morally, but more so in terms of being written. Like, he's the only properly written character, and you can also tell, since he's the director, you can tell that he just has such a good sense of this movie. He has a good, I guess you could say, care for it, and a lot of that does bleed through in his performance. Also, oddly enough, I find that the cinematography throughout this movie was actually, like, amazing. There was a lot of really clever shots and a lot of interesting ways to frame scenes. Like, there's one scene where the detective and somebody, just another character whose name I don't remember because the characters in this movie are incredibly forgettable, but we'll get to that in a second, are literally just talking about, I don't even remember what they were talking about because, again, the dialogue was also boring. But they're talking, and they're being framed through, like, a window where it's like a spiderweb fractal kind of broken glass window, and they're just being framed through it. And I kind of like how it is just it's just an interesting shot, and you can almost tell that on the day they just saw that and we're like, oh, can we just film through that, because it looks more interesting when they're just talking. But other than that, yeah, this movie was incredibly mediocre, and we'll get to that right now. And the number one thing we gotta talk about before anything else is the characters. Oh my god, they're so fucking boring. You know, you would think that in a murder mystery with a cast this big, you would at least be able to pull off one good character. And you know what? I would argue there is one, other than the main detective, as I've already mentioned. I think he is okay. He's fine. And, you know, the performance definitely helps him. But other than that, my god, these characters are so boring. They're so one-note, one-dimensional, and do not have anything hidden under them. And they're all just doing so many weird things that pull attention away from their characters. Like, for instance, Shuri from Black Panther is in this movie. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the actress's name. But she's in this movie, and she has to do like like a southern accent, and it just sounds so funny. It sounds like a combination of Cannonball's accent from the New Mutants and Taron Egerton's accent from Kingsman. Just imagine that, like, smushed into a voice. It's so funny. And that's a whole nother topic we could talk about, because my god, this movie is actually hilarious when it wants to be. This is one of the most unintentionally funny movies I've seen in years. Like, there's literally one scene where Jason Bateman is at a party, and obviously in ADR, by the way. It's even funnier when you can tell that he's obviously ADRing his own lines. He's literally at a party with all of the principal characters, and he has to just tell the audience, okay, there's that guy, and this is his backstory. Okay, there's that guy. That's why he's here, and that's his backstory. Oh, look out for that guy. He might kill someone later, just in case that happens. It's the funniest thing ever, because I can just imagine them filming the whole movie and then going, oh my god, we didn't explain everyone's backstory, and then just getting Jason Bateman to come back, having him do ADR, and just going, okay, this party scene, just film different people and just have him explain who they are. But that's not even the best part. My favorite part of the whole movie is that the entire beginning of the movie is a prologue. It's actually kind of a cool scene where we get to see the detective fighting in World War One. And they do like an ambush and anything. It's just like a cool action scene and everything. It's a cool prologue. But the scene is so funny when you realize that by the end, the whole point of the scene, of the entire prologue, was just to tell the origin story of his mustache. Like, they even have, like, the Two-Face shot from the fucking Dark Knight when Harvey's laying on a cot and he turns over. It's this dramatic reveal. They have a scene like that where he, like, turns over to reveal his, like, scarred mouth. And they're like, oh, well, I guess you gotta grow a mustache. Can you imagine writing that? I'm sorry, here. Can you just imagine sitting down and writing a scene and just being, yep, the whole point of the scene, the reason why we have to have this scene in here is just to tell the story of why our character has a mustache. Okay, I'm gonna calm down now. All right, I'm sorry. That was very, very unprofessional of me. But I'm serious right now. This movie is a laugh riot if you see it in the right context. But that actually bleeds into, like, the biggest problem with this movie, because as I mentioned before, the characters here are just nothing special, and it's even weirder when you realize that we had to have a scene in the beginning to tell the origin of our character's mustache, but we can't have a scene to establish the important relationship between the detective and one of his friends, or any of the other characters in this movie. I mean, there are a lot of very important relationships we see throughout this that just aren't established properly or aren't developed properly because we have so many other scenes where we have to have our characters just sitting around and having a party. And that's another problem. This movie is incredibly boring. Like, the first half of this movie is essentially just a bunch of people having a party on a boat. And I'm not exaggerating when I say the first half. Like, it took, I think I checked my watch, and it took about an hour and 15 minutes until the first person died in a murder mystery movie. It took over half of the movie of a murder mystery movie for someone to be murdered. In a movie called A Death on the Nile, it took half the movie for death to actually happen. And I actually got really excited when that happened, because I was like, okay, now it's time for us to actually start moving and doing stuff. And is it going to be a, high octane ride after that, where we get to see the detective going on, fun interviews, and it's very tense and stressful, and we get to actually see our characters doing interesting stuff?
No way. Not this time. No way. We got you. Not a chance. Not this time. Not this time. Wrong. Not this time. Not this time. You're wrong.
I will say the second half is definitely better than the first by proxy of it actually having a plot, because again, the first half of this movie is literally just people hanging out on a boat, having a good time. There's a little bit of conflict there between our main relationship couple of, I'm forgetting their names because their characters were very boring, but it was Gal Gadot and Armie Hammer's characters, and then his ex-lover Jackie. She's the only character's name I remember because I'll get to this in a second, but she's the only character I liked in this movie. Yeah, Jackie was the only reason I was able to sit through this movie, because she is the best character by virtue of actually having a character and actually being interesting. Like, in the beginning, she's this insane, like, nutcase that's stalking her ex-boyfriend essentially and trying to ruin his marriage and stuff, and it's like this. It at least has, like, conflict and stakes there, so it's obviously better than everything else we're seeing. But also, she's just, like, so crazy and intense that, like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, thank God I'm actually watching a movie. Like, something's actually happening now. Like, I woke up from the coma this movie put me in when she was on screen. But other than that, yeah, this movie's not really got much else going for it. I mean, it's not like it's criminally awful or anything. I mean, it's not like it does anything horribly wrong. Its problem is that it's just very mediocre. I mean, we live in an era where a movie like Knives Out exists, and when a movie like that has set the bar for whodunits, if you ask me, if you ask me, that is the best whodunit movie probably ever, and I love whodunit movies, but the fact that the bar has been set that high, and for this to just be such a mediocre movie is very disappointing, especially given the cast and given Kenneth Branagh and the passion that he clearly very like the passion he has for this movie. So yeah, it's like a 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. I don't know. It's just okay. I give me a sequel all about Jackie and the detective. They were the only reason this movie was halfway bearable.
Bereaved, as one at every wedding party. The good Dr. Windlesham proposed to Miss Ridgway when she was still Miss Ridgway. He and the papers both had the deal as good as done. Then came the engorged stallion, and now it's Mrs. Doyle. If I were in his shoes, I'd only come here to put a bullet in the groom. Our other guests, Lynette's godmother, who despises Lynette's wealth, and the godmother's nursemaid Bowers, who covets it, as does Lynette's own maid, poor old Louise. Oh, his cousin Andrew. He's a slippery fish. No one except Lynette trusts him. We find Mother and I are the only sane people here. The only one who seems to like Lynette at all is her old schoolmate Rosalie. She's Salome Otterbourne's niece and arranged for her to come to play for them.